Hi. So there has been a huge influx of people feeling anxious, overwhelmed, getting in touch, worrying about the future, feeling more out of control than they have done in a long time. And so I'm here just to talk to you for the next 5 minutes about that to see if I can help in any way possible, or maybe help you see things from a slightly different perspective, even in this 5 minutes. So I'm Sally Taylor and I run my own business coaching. I work with people across the world, people online, face to face. I've written a book about anxiety. I work with families, couples, you name it. And I ended up in this situation working with people in this way because I suffered with really severe anxiety in my early 20s, so much so that I was hospitalized for a month. And I then went on in this whole exploration, which included training as a psychotherapist, training in lots of other areas. I've done work in CBT, DBT, NLP, loads of stuff. And actually, one of the biggest things that I learned and what I now do with other people, particularly who are overwhelmed or anxious or getting in their own way. I even work with business owners who are at a point where they feel like they're going around in circles and they're stuck and in their own way. And ultimately, what I do is I help people explore what it actually means to be a human being, how we work. Because one of the biggest things that changed my relationship with anxiety, and I went from fearing every time I would have a panic attack or an anxious episode, I lived in fear of it, to now not actually caring too much if I have feelings of anxiety because I understand it. And I know that it's not unsafe. I know that it's just something that is happening as a result of me having a lot of anxious thinking. So, we are having hundreds and thousands of thoughts a day, like probably more than that. I don't know the actual figures, but we know that we're having a heck of a lot of thoughts, whether we like it or not. We can't stop them, we can't control them. And actually, they're all neutral because they're just words that create a sentence, that create a thought that is neutral. But what we do is we bring them to life. We add energy to them. We add value based on what's happened in the past, based on what we're worried about in the future. And we bring our thoughts to life. And then we then decide whether a thought is a good thought or a bad thought. And we get into this habit, I know I certainly did, of trying to get rid of all the bad thoughts that I have and change them into positive. And that sounds great. And sometimes it may even work for a little bit. But there comes a point when those negative overthinking can become so habitual that we don't even really realize that we're doing it. So let's take COVID, for example, as that's very topical at the moment. If I saw something on the television, say I was watching the news and you know at the bottom where you've got the ticker tape of the news and it's giving you the highlight reel of what's going on. Now, I might see something on there that says COVID deaths increased in Manchester, which is where I'm from. And I'm going to have that thought. Now, with that thought, because thoughts create feelings, so with that thought, there's probably going to be a bit of discomfort. Like, I can't imagine anybody's going to have a thought, oh, deaths have increased in your area and feel good about it. Like, the attached to that is going to be, then a progression of other thoughts around what does that mean for me? Is that scary, etc., etc. Now, I can't get away from that. And so I have to just kind of ride that discomfort. But what I do know is because I really understand how thoughts work, what I do know is that once my thoughts have switched to something else and fallen away, which is what they do naturally, then my feelings are also going to shift. However, when we feel like thoughts are something that we need to take control of and something that we really need to pay huge attention to, which they're not, we go into sort of fixing problem solving. So, for example, if I saw that ticker tape that said COVID deaths in Manchester, I would have that uncomfortable feeling. And then I would probably then be doing something else. And before I know it, that thought has gone out of my head. The feelings have subsided because the thoughts have gone and I am continuing with my day. However, if I sat down, turned the volume up, sat closer to the TV, got on my phone and started kind of Googling, oh, okay, so, how many deaths is that? Which hospitals are oversubscribed? Is it one near me? And that would be me bringing it to life through thought. And all of those thoughts, because those thoughts 100% of the time are creating feelings, that I'm starting to suffer because I'm having a lot of anxious thinking about what does this mean? What if? Then I have really severe feelings of anxiety because I'm layering the thoughts on top of thoughts on top of thoughts. And so the feelings are intensifying. Now, I could do all of that worrying, and it may for a very short time make me feel like I'm somehow in control, because if I know exactly what's happening, I'll be okay. But actually, the level of worrying and wondering that I do is not going to actually have any relation to whether I end up being infected with a disease or not. In actual fact, you could argue the opposite, that if I am stressed and overwhelmed and anxious, then I'm much less likely to fight off an infection anyway, and my immune system will be compromised. So it is in our interest, actually, to get out of the habit of layering thoughts on top of thoughts on top of thoughts. Now, people may be watching this and think, yeah, but it's not that easy, it's not that simple. And actually it is, but what we do, and what I did for many, many years, so I get it, is we overcomplicate it. We believe there's something we need to do, when actually the way thought works really naturally is that they come and they go, and we have feelings attached to those. But how we respond to that and how much more energy and life and value we give to those thoughts is entirely down to us. And people don't always realize that it is just a habit that we've formed over time of problem solving that actually we don't need to continue doing. And in these times where we are overthinking and we are kind of layering thoughts on top of thoughts, then we start with physical symptoms, feeling dizziness, sickness, all the physical symptoms that can come with stress and overwhelm. And then we can end up in a cycle of overthinking those, because then we worry, oh, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel like this? And actually, it's exactly how we should be feeling based on the thoughts that we are paying attention to in our minds. If we're going to tell our brain that we're in danger and that we need to be on alert, then our brain is going to react accordingly. And it's the part of the brain that regulates your temperature, your heart rate. So you're going to feel it physically. Again, it's not unsafe. It might not be comfortable. Of course it's not. But it will pass quicker if left alone, just for your body to naturally reset. Once you've triggered that adrenaline rush in your body, you can't get rid of it. It's not, you can't grab it out of you. You've just got to let it do its thing and disappear. But if you then continue with more anxious thinking, then you're going to just produce even more adrenaline. So it becomes this vicious cycle. And awareness of that, the fact that that is even happening, is a really good starting place. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed and anxious, the chances are that you've lost sight of actually how bloody resilient you actually are. We are creatures of survival. Even when I look back at my most anxious times where I didn't want to leave the bedroom, I was still surviving. I was doing what I felt was the only thing I could do in that moment. So that was good enough at that point. And we really beat ourselves up for not being strong or not having it all figured out, or not. And that's just harmful to us, and actually makes us end up in this vicious cycle for even longer. So if there's just one thing that you take away from this short video, is that just watch how you're treating yourself. If you are worried and scared and overwhelmed, show yourself compassion and understanding rather than criticism and pressure. And it sounds simple, and to some it might even sound a little bit airy-fairy, like we're taking the easy road, or we're being soft touches with ourselves. But I can promise you, I tried the other way for many, many years, and it just continued to create this vicious cycle of anxiety, stress, and overwhelm. And now that I'm compassionate with myself, and I appreciate the efforts that I make, sometimes I don't always make the best choices, but I make the best choices in that moment with the quality of my thinking at that time, and I'm okay with that. I'm kinder to myself, I'm more compassionate, and guess what? I am never, ever as anxious as I was. I don't say never anxious because it's part of being human, and we will experience anxiety. But the difference for me is I'm not scared of it. And so it goes as quick as it comes. So I hope that's in some way helps. So compassion, guys, is what we want. Treat yourself with compassion at times where things seem difficult and seem challenging. That's the time when you need yourself to give yourself a big internal hug and be compassionate to yourself, because beating yourself up, it's not going to cut it. Take care, everyone.